What if the most accurate forecast of Lewis Hamilton's rocky Ferrari debut came not from Maranello's think tank, but from the driver he replaced? Carlos Sainz, now dressed head to toe in Williams blue, warned the world that a seven-time champion would struggle long before the first red light blinked out. His calm prediction is turning into prophecy, and it contains the key to understanding why Hamilton's early lap times look ordinary while his long-term ceiling remains sky-high. Keep listening, because when you follow the Spaniard's breadcrumb trail, the stopwatch starts to make perfect sense. I am not surprised at all. 5 words, spoken in the Miami paddock, silenced a press pack hungry for sensational headlines. Carlos Sainz delivered them without bravado, framing Hamilton's underwhelm not as collapse, but as curriculum. He explained that changing teams at Formula One's summit is less like switching offices and more like rewiring reflexes built over a decade. In other words, Hamilton's current deficit to Charles Leclerc was always on the menu. Sainz's credibility comes from lived experience. Just weeks earlier, he endured the same baptism at Williams, and every missed apex became another data point in his own adaptation log. When he speaks, the context is not theory, it is scar tissue. Sainz's first 5 events of 2025 read like a graduate course in humility. Bahrain, Alex Albon ahead. Melbourne, the same story. Suzuka and Shanghai, still trailing. Then under Jeddah's floodlights, Sainz finally cracked the top 8, leading Albon home for a double points haul that vaulted Williams to 5th in the constructors' standings. That 8th place finish required taming a car that brakes later, pivots faster, and overheats its rear tyres sooner than anything he has driven. It took him roughly 60 days to outqualify Albon again, and 90 days to beat him on race day. Those numbers anchor his prediction for Hamilton, at least 6 months before the last 1% of performance locks into place. So if Sainz can map out adaptation with that kind of precision, what exactly makes the process so brutal? Imagine composing orchestral music with your non-dominant hand while the audience listens in real time. That is what a driver faces when trading one engineering philosophy for another. Mercedes chassis reward traction-first exits, soft rear springs, and a stable brake-by-wire curve. Ferrari's SF25, by contrast, dances through corners with a lively rear axle that begs patience on throttle pickup. Hamilton must unlearn a decade of muscle memory that once screamed power now and replace it with rotate first, unleash later. Engineers call this hunt for harmony the last 1%. Reaching 99% of potential is quick, data points you there. But the final slice only arrives when instinct and machine merge. Sainz's yardstick of half a season comes from logging thousands of simulator laps and hundreds on track before his Williams finally responded exactly as expected in turn 13 at Jeddah. The explanation may sound technical, but the day-to-day reality is even more intricate. Circle Suzuka in 93 seconds, and you will alter brake bias for the hairpin, fine-tune differential preload for spoon, and tweak energy recovery at 180 km per hour through the essiers. Each adjustment nudges tyre carcass temperatures by up to 20 degrees Celsius and aero balance by fractions of a millimetre. Leclerc has those levers engraved in his subconscious. Hamilton is feeling for them in the dark. Sainz compares the process to reading a novel missing all the vowels. You glean the plot, but every sentence requires effort. Friday practice becomes a laboratory. One run explores high engine braking. The next dials it low. Downforce is trimmed, then restored. Telemetry meetings sprawl past midnight as engineers hunt correlations. Every lap closes one door and opens 2 more. Sainz remembers the instant his Williams finally clicked. A perfect rotation through Jeddah's turn 13 at 300 km per hour. Lap time tumbled, confidence surged, and 8th place felt like winning silverware. Hamilton's click is still buffering. Viewers spotted radical diff map experiments in Suzuka, early turn-in tests in Melbourne, and aggressive upshift strategies in Shanghai. Evidence of a champion still fitting puzzle pieces. Ferrari insiders whisper that late summer venues such as Spa or Monza could host his breakthrough, provided external pressure does not force shortcuts. Because shortcuts rarely exist at the top, and impatience is the enemy of mastery. A rookie can finish 12 seconds adrift of his teammate and earn sympathetic nods. A global icon in scarlet falls 3 seconds shy of victory, and social media detonates. The microscope hovering above Lewis Hamilton is not merely powerful, it is relentless, scanning every sector for hints of decline. Soundbite culture craves melodrama. It paints cautious radio chatter as panic and minor lockups as crisis. Hidden beyond the headlines, data reveals nuance. Hamilton's throttle modulation in mid-speed bends is already within 2% of Leclerc's benchmark, and his braking consistency is tighter than during his first Mercedes months back in 2013. But overlay graphs do not trend. Sensational clips do. Television packages feed this appetite. Slow-motion reruns of Hamilton missing an apex at Miami sell more advertising than a graph showing his corner exit delta shrinking by 0.04. The result? A narrative of downfall where the reality is simply delayed dominance. 17 seasons, 103 victories, 7 world titles. This resume transforms every ordinary learning curve into a referendum on greatness. Fans remember Hamilton's imperious pole laps at Silverstone or his weather wizardry in Hockenheim, and forget that even those highs were forged through fierce trial and error. Legacy morphs into a yardstick so tall that anything below perfection feels like imminent retirement. Sports psychologists label the internal echo spotlight load. Athletes under extreme scrutiny devote extra cognitive bandwidth to managing expectations, leaving less capacity for split-second decisions. At 330 kilometers per hour, a single heartbeat of hesitation costs 0.02, often the difference between second row and fourth row. Hamilton mitigates with breathing drills and emotion-stripped debriefs, yet the tax remains. Carlos Sainz shares the same adaptation battlefield, different livery, identical war. When he flat-spotted a tyre in Melbourne, the incident slipped quietly through news feeds. Hamilton locks up once in Miami, and hashtags trend globally. Sainz highlighted this empathy gap, not to shield Hamilton, but to expose Formula One's double-edged hero worship. In his view, raw lap time tells only half the story, the pressure gradient tells the rest. Formula One operates on a brutal metronome, 24 races across 10 months, each a fixed deadline. Adaptation must hit milestones, because the championship table updates every other Sunday whether or not comfort has arrived. Mark 6 months from pre-season testing, and the stopwatch halts in late August at Spa-Francorchamps. Engineers consider Spa the litmus track. Its sweeping turns exaggerate both strengths and weaknesses. Ferrari plan to unleash a lighter floor and reprofiled side pods there. Changes believed to favour Hamilton's historical reliance on rear stability. Yet, upgrades reset familiarity. Each fresh aerodynamic surface forces a new mental map of braking points and tyre preparation windows. Ferrari trail McLaren and Red Bull in the constructors' race. To claw back, they must average 30 points per event across the remaining calendar, essentially double podiums every weekend. Hamilton's slice is 15 points per round, equivalent to consistent second or third places. Anything less, and the title tilt becomes improbable. Those cold statistics pulse in every strategy meeting. At 40 years old, Hamilton hears whispers about fading reflexes. Yet laboratory tests in the Maranello gym show his reaction times reside in the top quartile of the grid. Experience can compress decision-making latency by recognizing patterns sooner. The bigger threat is emotional fatigue. To guard against it, Hamilton schedules sea-level altitude sessions, silent weekends in Monaco, and strictly timed phone blackouts. Every recovery block is plotted like a gearbox change. Carlos Sainz's quiet forecast has evolved into the paddock's most reliable compass. By mapping his own adaptation at Williams, he illuminated Hamilton's uphill climb at Ferrari, not a downfall, but a syllabus. Data already shows the 7-time champion carving chunks from his early deficits. When instinct finally dovetails with the SF25, today's whispers of decline will read like premature obituaries. Until then, the engines howl, the clock ticks, and Formula One's most fascinating dual experiment, Sainz charting new territory at Williams and Hamilton rewriting his legacy at Ferrari, continues to gather data, lap after lap, corner after corner.